Today, we're going to look at the history of photosynthesis. How do we come up with this weird idea that plants can capture sunlight and make their own food? This study did not come fully formed out of thin air. In fact, there were some uh, distractions along the way that weren't quite correct. So let's look at those and see how do we first figure out that plants can do this amazing thing where they can pull energy from the sun using water and carbon dioxide, build the basic units of life, cells, and power those cells. So in the 1600s, the scientist Helmont, he did this fantastic experiment where he measured how much soil he put in a pot, grew a tree, a willow tree, I believe, and noticed, hey, the soil stayed about constant. The tree did not absorb the soil in its pot somehow. So where did the tree get all its mass from? How did it get so big without using up the soil? He hypothesized, well, maybe it's using the water, right? The only thing he added was water, so a reasonable hypothesis. Unfortunately, he did not test it to see if he was correct. In the late 1600s, another scientist, philosopher of nature at this point, they weren't quite full-formed scientists as we know them today, but Woodward realized he did a similar experiment, but this time he measured how much water went in. He said, all right, so I've added about 7,600 grams of water to this plant over 70 days. And the plant added 1 gram of mass. 7,600 grams of water, 1 gram of plant. So clearly the plants weren't getting their mass from the water either. And this led to some really weird questions of how are these plants doing this? No one was quite sure at the time. This question kind of hung around in the background for a long time until the late 1700s, when priests figured out, hey, plants change the air around them. He did this by putting plants in a jar with a lit candle, and then in another jar with no plant and a candle. He noticed in both cases, the flame went out. But if he used a magnifying lens to shine, I wish I had a picture of this for you guys. Ryan, I'll show you in class. He used a magnifying glass to relight both candles. And the candle with the plant in the same jar was able to relight. So he was able to say, hey, plants are doing something to the air. They didn't know about oxygen yet, but plants are doing something. It's changing the air. It's letting this candle relight. Fortunately, closely after this time, in 1772, oxygen was discovered. And another scientist figured out that, hey, plants need light to produce this oxygen gas. This was the gas that Precy was observing plants producing, was oxygen, which we take for granted that, of course plants produce oxygen. Who doesn't know that? Well, this is when we figured it out. We didn't know before then. We didn't know before 1772 there was oxygen. Right? Crazy. All of human history. We just figured it out just over 200 years ago. So that's really about the history of how we came up with photosynthesis. It took us a long time to realize, hey, plants don't use up their soil. There's a great video from Veritasium I've linked to below. Check it out. He does a great job exploring how do plants get their mass. So if it's not from their soil, and it's not from the water primarily. All right, so check that out. And if you have questions, find any suggestions, let me know. And I'll see you guys in class or the next video.